say that we actually have accomplished quite a bit, particularly when you have spending at the rate of 50% and the rate of inflation that's at 20%, and you've gone from debt service of $400 million to $1 billion. In 8 years, we went from $20 billion in spending to $28 billion in spending under the prior governor. And that the key issue in front of us was how do you tighten your belts while still meeting the priorities, and that was the most important and significant item that had to be accomplished. Back when I started, the Fair Share Act was heroic in getting it done. I would say that in 2.5 years' time, we have accomplished more things that were on the agenda that people have talked about and got them done. I think what happened when we passed liquor privatization by 105 to 90 in March, we set expectations, because let's be honest, it is a huge change in Pennsylvania, and nothing has been done since 1933, and 2 Republican governors and 1 Democratic governor talked about getting it done. We got it done, 105 to 90. I actually think that there have been Herculean items accomplished. I can tell you the 4 years that were under our colleagues on the other side of the aisle, that's where nothing got done, other than spend more, borrow more, and tax more. And I would take what we've done in 2.5 years and contrast it with those preceding 4 years anyway.
What specific pension bill is the House focused on?
The bill that's out of committee is sponsored by Representative Camp. There's actually 2 bills, one that deals with PESER, one that deals with SERS. They are bills that would provide defined contributions for new hires. I can also say that Representatives Glenn Grell and Representatives Mike Turzai want to vet some ideas in terms of amending that, but I can tell you that for most of the caucus, there is a breadth and intensity of support that we need to move Pennsylvania into the 21st century while still respecting existing employees and retirees to whom we have already made a deal.
How much do you think ordinary people care about legislators passing an increase in transportation funding?
I myself think that the public is not that focused. Nobody's asking for it amongst everyday people to increase their gas tax. Nobody's asking for fees, fines, and surcharges to be increased. But I know that the governor wants it. He would like to see a significant transportation funding bill passed. I can tell you that there is widespread support, obviously in the Senate for it. They passed it 45-5. I think there's reticence in the House. People are on the ground level, but I've heard that my colleagues on the Democratic side, they said this to me, and they said this in hearings, and they said it in the media, that they have to have Senate Bill 1 or nothing less. They want $2.5 billion annual increase in gas taxes, fines, fees, and surcharges. And many of us think we ought to have a vote and to see where everybody is on it. And it's certainly not something that we want to hold up other items. We never have linked the issues of any type of issues. If people think that $2.5 billion annually is the right investment, you know, they should be able to stand up and stand behind it. We're looking to see exactly if the governor is or is not with the Senate bill. But I can tell you this, I myself think it's far too much. It's a burden on working families. I think an additional 28 cents at the pump on top of the 31 cents at the pump is too much. That's me, 28th district, talking to people at baseball fields. I do think that there should be an investment in infrastructure above the $6.8 billion that we spend. I would focus on something that does critical needs and something that makes use of the public-private partnership bill that's already passed. But I think that people are going to have an opportunity to make their case and to see if the votes are there in the House for the Senate bill version. And I know that different people have different perspectives on this policy issue, and we're going to vet it out here at the beginning of this part of the voting session.
Specifically, what is the caucus's plan for critical needs, transportation funding, and what is the spend figure for that plan?
as I said, we'll be caucusing it. We're going to be talking about the Senate bill as it came over. And we know that our colleagues, the Democrats, have said the minimum, the floor, Joe Markosik, the Democratic Appropriations Chair, has said that the floor is $2.5 billion annual increase in the gas tax, in fines, fees, and surcharges. He said that's the floor. I think he'll have an opportunity to be able to vote on that and to show people where he is and where his caucus is, and we'll go from there.
Who is the new Transportation Committee chairman?
The Speaker chooses who the chair is. We had some members who had expressed some interest in it. Keep in mind that the transportation bill is out of committee, so we have a single subject, original purpose already met. We have Senate Bill 1 out of committee. So any substantive movement will really be an amendment on the floor. We have the bill out of committee.
Which do you support or anticipate a floor vote on this fall regarding property tax? House Bill 76 or the Grove Bill that just won committee approval?
Look, we're going to have a discussion about a variety of pieces of legislation. I applaud all of my members, including Representative Cox, who have put a significant amount of time in trying to address an issue that arises in communities in varying parts of the state. I ultimately think that the local control of education matters. I don't know that you can substitute $14 billion in local taxes at the state level. We have to more than double the personal income tax, or we have to almost more than double the sales tax. Personal income tax, brings in about $10 billion, so you'd have to a little over $10 billion, so you'd have to more than double it if you were going there. Sometimes people talk about expanding the sales tax. I think people do not understand that when you expand the sales tax to food and clothing, that alone only brings you $3 billion. You still have to come up with $11 billion more dollars if you're expanding the sales tax. I have heard from employers in the financial sector that if you were to tax financial transactions, ATM deposits, check deposits, check withdrawals, deposits into a myriad of accounts, transfers, they make it clear that, we can be headquartered in any state. Why would we be here in Pennsylvania if you're headed down that road? And I don't think anybody has quantified what a sales tax on those types of transactions would be, but I could never support that myself. I think the financial sector is a huge employer in the Commonwealth and drives so much of the positive economy. But I would tell you this, I think 1189 has real legs, but we're going to vet all the issues, and I applaud all of our members for the hard work they've done. They care about citizens, and they want to get to a solution.
Time for two more. Do you think Governor Corbett's reelection relies on the legislature passing one of his big three items?
Well, we already passed the liquor privatization 105 to 90, and the Senate has passed the $2.5 billion annual dollar amount for transportation funding. Those we're going to have a caucus here this week on transportation funding. I think public pension reforms is something that has to change. And I will tell you another item that I think is crucial, and I want to put this on the record. There's been much discussion about prohibiting or eliminating dues deductions from certain public sector unions, because the government should be commingling in that collection of dues or political contributions. The government ought to be out of that. Now, the obligation that the employee has with its union, that's separate of the state. That's a legal duty that's there. But we should not, particularly after bonus date, should not be in the business of collecting those union dues or those political contributions. We should be out of that. Now, I know that the governor could negotiate those items out of contracts when he negotiates with the various unions, but that did not happen so far, and it hasn't happened with previous governors. So I think we have to look at that legislatively And I know Representative Cutler has an important bill on the front, and I think that that's another important piece of legislation that we have to focus on.
Finally, the current Franklin and Marshall College poll says the legislature's approval rating is 11%. Why do you think that is?
I think as everybody assesses their own legislature, they decide whether or not they think they're doing a good job or not a good job. I think that oftentimes people have limited knowledge as to what happens here in Harrisburg, and people are just disdainful of government overall. I think a lot of that has to do with the federal level, the real intransigence that has developed in Washington, D.C. over the last 5 years. We've actually got quite a bit accomplished, far more accomplished than the previous 4 years when Governor Rendell had control of the Democratic House. I'd just say this about transportation funding. That was Governor Rendell's #1 item coming after his reelect, was to increase taxes, fees, fines, and surcharges for transportation funding coming out of his reelection over Lynn Swan. And he had a Democratic House, a Republican Senate that was open to it, and he couldn't get it done. He couldn't get it over the goal line. He ended up doing the borrowing plan in 2007, where we borrow $450 million annually. $250 million of that borrowed money goes to mass transit every year. We've already accumulated something about $4 billion, and we're only making the minimum payment on that. And I will tell you that I'm convinced that we have accomplished much more than what we said we were going to do when we came back into the majority. And I think that our election in a bad Republican year, we came back in the majority 111 to 92, and I think our members had no problem going back and telling their constituents in town hall meetings, the stores, look, here's what we campaigned on, and here's what we did, and we are protecting you as citizens. And I feel very, very positive about that. There's a real balance between the needs of the seniors and those with disabilities and making sure that we're fiscal stewards for taxpayers. That balance has definitely been addressed by the Republican caucus in the State House, and I think that's why we're back in the majority 111 to 92.